Nobody goes off trail.
And everyone loves the show.
That's right. Nobody goes off trail.
And everyone loves the show. In today's episode of Watching as a Writer, we're taking on the monster, the Leviathan, the Rings of... Despite numerous videos taking the Rings of Power apart, I feel that the main reason for the show's failure is often misunderstood. Yes, the plot is meandering. Yes, there are a lot of ideologically motivated analogies. Yes, the lore is butchered. But these failures wouldn't be as impactful as they are without one final ingredient, the dark glue that binds them all together. Get it? Get it? Before we get to that, let me say a few words about my relationship with Tolkien's work. Casual fan is probably the best description. I read The Hobbit as a kid, watched the first Peter Jackson movie when it was released, fell in love with the world, read all books that I could find, then watched the last two movies informed enough to even fume at the lore changes here and there. But since then I have forgotten quite a lot of lore, especially when it comes to the materials in the Silmarillion. Coming back to our hate reasons. At the end of the day, even for such a massive franchise as Lord of the Rings, it's the casual viewer, the proverbial normie, that ultimately determines the success or failure of the show. The normie doesn't really care about lore changes. Also, for better or worse, he is also quite tolerant to ideological messaging. The normie is probably not gonna like the meandering plot and maybe a little confused, but at the end of the day, I think that the plot is actually intriguing enough to keep people watching, especially when the series is endowed with the credit of trust by the Lord of the Rings stamp. And honestly, call me a sucker for cheap tricks and attention-grabbing mechanisms, but I am curious where the whole thing is gonna go. I am curious about those magic boxes, about whether Halbrand is Sauron or Nazgul or neither, whether the magic star hobo is Gandalf or somebody else. Yeah, I'm easy to intrigue, I guess, but I think so are many other people. So the plot is interesting enough to keep people watching. And yet, judging by the ratings and the reviews, people are not enjoying the show. So why is that? And here comes the main ingredient, the lack of love. I know it sounds stupid, but I don't think it is. You know, as in our world, we often say that love, it connects everything and so on. Here, it's almost the opposite. The lack of it destroys everything and it rips it apart. I know it sounds vague and ridiculous, but I had the strong feeling that whoever made the show did not love it. Vague as it is, I think that many people share this sentiment. Since this video is about watching as a writer, I would like to try to pinpoint what exactly creates this lack of love sensation, so that later we can avoid it in our own writing. The first thing I noticed is that I feel this lack of love when writers are mindlessly checking off boxes on their character, plot, or whatever development without thinking about the consequences. In this scene, we see Arondir walking by two people playing basically chess, and he calls mate in 3. You can almost see the screenwriter behind it jumping in ecstasy. Hey, just like my Writing 101 textbook suggested, I showed and did not tell that the character is intelligent. Okay, intelligence shown. Checkmark, moving on. Well, good for them. Unfortunately though, in an act of delicious cosmic irony, the very scene that shows that their character can calculate 3 steps ahead also shows that the writer themselves cannot even calculate 1 step ahead. Because think about what this scene shows. Yes, it shows intelligence, great. But what it also shows? It shows that your character is a moron. Who on earth would pass 2 people playing chess and just ruin the game for them by giving them the best move? Who would do that? What if they were playing for money, now they have to restart the whole match or whatever? But also, what kind of person would feel the need to showcase their intellectual superiority to 2 random drunkard-looking people? So, through this incredible feat of writing efficiency, we have established 4 things at once. Arondir is an insecure, conceited, intelligent moron. Good job. Nobody on the production team thought through Arondir's motivation, because nobody cares about Arondir. We care about boxes, we have boxes to check, and boxes have been checked. Moving on. I also feel lack of love when I see sloppy cuts. Look at the character's hands here, almost touching, not even close. This is not just some extra in the background. Their hands are at the center of the screen, creating romantic tension between main characters that then turns into unintentional comic relief. Was there nobody on the production team to notice it? And let's say they've already made the shot and noticed it later. Was there no way to mitigate it in post-production? I don't believe it. All they needed is one person to actually care about the show and about the detail. I actually have a hard time believing that they didn't care about their show at all. I do think that they probably liked what they're doing, and I think maybe what had happened is that they were so enthralled by the grandeur of their vision that they forgot this little detail that they actually have to make a good show. It's almost like not seeing the forest behind the trees, but the other way around. It's like you have this vision of this amazing lush forest that you want to create, and you forget that it still consists of individual trees that you have to paint, write, or film, or whatever. I think it serves as a great reminder for us writers that no matter how grand our ideas may seem to us, at the end of the day, a book is just a collection of words, and each of those words needs to be chosen with care and love. Lack of love is characters just doing their job. Let's look at this raft scene. Look at Galadriel. What is she doing? She's just tugging at this sorry rope for no reason at all. Why? Because the director said, "Tug at the rope," and so she did. Nobody bothered to think about what would actually be a useful thing to do with it. Imagine how much better this scene would be if, while talking to Halbrand, Galadriel were to competently tie an actual nautical knot. And you don't have to zoom in on her hands, you don't have to play epic music to show how extremely cool it is. She doesn't have to do it in a fancy way. Just show us that in her thousands of years in Middle-earth, the lady has learned some shit. She's competent. Unfortunately, in the Rings of Power, we never see that. We only see two types of actions. The most common type is actions that nobody thought about. These mostly devolve into, I wasn't told to do anything, so I'll just awkwardly stand here and tug at this rope and say my lines and get beaten by a troll and act as if it's my first time at sea and so on and so forth. And at least I'm getting paid for it. The second type is actions that somebody did think about and was so proud of it that they put it in the middle of the screen and put epic music over it, and everybody should be just completely excited. So there is no room for subtlety. Everything is either a big deal or nothing at all. Just for a second, contrast it with the original trilogy. Viggo Mortensen insisted that his character would be the type to repair his own clothes, and everybody rolled with it, even though it was completely unnecessary and, nobody required that. This wasn't a big deal. We never got a huge shot of Aragorn repairing his clothes with epic music because he's so cool. It's just a subtle detail added out of love and appreciation for what you're doing. And without it, it just doesn't work. Now, I can talk about it for hours. Unfortunately, almost every shot in The Rings of Power has some evidence of the lack of love, some weird quirk that just pulls you out of this world and makes you wonder why. Why is it like that? To wrap up the video though, let's look at one more scene that kind of has almost all of those elements. So we have a few elves caught as prisoners and used as slaves. We have this water exchange scene, also not without its issues, but let's fast forward to the part where captives escape. Here we have the first escapee get killed with a throw axe. Another one-move blunder. Did the orcs run off axes? We have a bunch of prisoners standing in an open opposition with no armor. Why are the orcs not throwing axes at them? And this issue could be easily remedied if we just show one axe being thrown and, people deflecting it with their tools or chain, and that would explain it. Now to the crux of the scene. We have a bunch of people just goofing around while the warg takes them one by one until Arondir comes to save the day. Now let's look at Hanno, who was previously Arondir's superior. So watch closely. He gets free, then throws away his only weapon and runs away. Why? Why would anybody in their right mind throw away the only weapon they have when they're escaping into the enemy-controlled territory? Well, I can tell you why. It's because we need him to be helpless when the warg escapes, so that Arondir can save the day again. That's another checkbox. We have to show that Arondir is capable. I have a feeling that we have a specific writer attached to Arondir who is just very fond of checkboxing. Although actually most of the show is like that, so I don't know. Even though this time this checkbox reasoning doesn't create any obvious unintended consequences, it still doesn't work. One way to think about this writing issue is to paraphrase Alice in Wonderland. In writing, the direct path is almost never the best one. If you just bash us over the head about how awesome Arondir is, we as viewers just won't believe it. I don't know why, but that's how it works. Back to the scene, Hanno escapes, but is instantly killed by an arrow. And here I felt nothing, because Hanno's escape was basically earned by Arondir. Arondir whipped his chain around to kick some orc butt, handled the warg. In a wonderful feat of intelligence and athleticism, he cuts the cover and destroys a bunch of orcs with sunlight. While Arondir was doing all of those amazing things, Hanno's main achievement was to cut his chain and then, like an idiot, throw away his weapon and run away, almost get eaten by a warg, thankfully saved by Arondir again, and then run away and die. He did nothing to earn his freedom. Arondir earned his freedom for him, and so when he is killed, we're like, well, Arondir, we're sorry, your efforts didn't pay off. But we don't feel for Hanno. Imagine if Hanno was to lead this rebellion, issue a few well-timed, well-thought-out commands, fight the warg side by side with Arondir, then Arondir and Hanno clamber up this escarpment together, hopeful to escape. Then as the leader, Hanno is the first to stand up, take this risk, and then he takes this arrow to his chest. To me, that would have felt much stronger, to see this capable, loyal leader give it all he has to this escaped attempt and then still fail in the end. I would have loved this scene. But the writers were so focused on their one checkbox showing that Arondir is really cool that they kind of forgot about everything else, and I think they've ruined a scene with amazing potential. So that's how I see the lack of love. It was a bit of a rant, and it's also not sci-fi, which is the main topic of my channel, but I hope that this serves as a cautionary tale and that none of us ever makes any of those mistakes in our own writing.